Hey everybody, Cinema Sickness here with your daily sickness video, and as always, hope you guys are having an absolutely fantastic day. It is that time once again, time to take a look at what I've recently been checking out over the last week. So, as always, let's dive directly into this video and take a look at what I've checked out. So, first up here, I watched Arthur Newman. Definitely have to check this out. Colin Firth, Emily Blunt, absolutely fantastic lineup right there, and turned out to be a fantastic movie as well. All about Colin Firth basically running away from his life. He's divorced, things aren't going great with his love life, he's like estranged from his son, they don't really get along, so he's kind of just fed up, done with everything, decides to run off, start a new life. He lied to some guy about being a golf pro and whatnot, and gave a fake name, being Arthur Newman. Ended up getting a fake ID, and fakes, it's crazy, he fakes his death and basically tries to just say he's dead, he doesn't exist anymore, and go off and start a whole brand new life. And sort of how that kind of ends up backfiring, and he comes across Emily Blunt, who's also doing the same thing, has a twin sister who suffers from mental illness, and doesn't really want to take care of her because she doesn't really feel she's kind of up to it and stuff. But basically what ends up happening is, long story short, in the end, they kind of realize they can't really run away from their lives. Colin Firth realizes, he has obligations. He really should fix things with his son. It's kind of ridiculous that they don't really get along. Shouldn't be going that way. Should patch things up with his son. And of course, Emily Blunt realizes that she needs to be there for her sister with mental illness. Kind of the only person. I mean, she's the only person that Emily Blunt's the only person there to take care of her sisters. Her sister has nobody else, so she realizes that they really can't run away from their lives. But kind of interesting at the same time, because they have a fling while they run away. They start to like each other, even though there's definitely a bit of an age difference. But still, they create a bit of a fling, and they think they're going to maybe start a life together and stuff, but it just doesn't work out that way. So it ends up being a really decent movie. Really enjoyed this one. Very interesting. I love every time they do have sex, it's an interesting way they go about doing it, because Emily Blunt in this movie is a little strange herself, but great movie. Definitely check it out. I really enjoyed that one. And then the best I've ever seen, Jessica Alba. I watched An Invisible Sign. I don't mean the best as far as acting wise, although she did a phenomenal job in this, so maybe one of the best. I thought she was great in this movie. I mean best by the way she looks. I know a lot of you are going to be like, what? What is she wearing? I love her in this movie. I love her style in this movie. It's kind of nerdy, sort of hipster. It's dressed down, but it's stylish at the same time, if that makes any sense. And I love it. I think she looked just amazing. That she's wearing just these skirts with sweaters and tights with a pair of Chuck Taylors. I think she looks pretty good in my opinion. I was just watching wow, that's the best I've ever seen Jessica Alba look in my opinion. I think she looks better like this than she does when she's all dolled up and stuff like that. So great movie. Also kind of about mental illness, in the sense that Jessica Alba's dad suffers from some mental issues, and she kind of after this happens kind of breaks down and has this issue where she kind of has I guess you could say kind of an OCD sort of thing going on, where she her whole life gets involved with numbers. She's always having to knock numbers on things, and numbers basically end up ruling her life, and everything in her life she brings back to numbers and whatnot. So very interesting. She's getting older now, and her parents are basically you need to move out and or basically her mother is saying you need to move out, get a job. Ends up getting her a job as a math teacher, and now she's teaching math and having to deal with her issues, and she meets another teacher, and he likes her, but she's all kind of little I guess you could say she's somewhat socially awkward, because she's kind of sheltered herself her whole life. She hasn't really necessarily made friends and gone out there and experienced stuff. She's definitely kind of sheltered herself, and because of that, a bit socially awkward. So her dealing with all this and whatnot, her dealing with her sort of mental issues, and her dealing with what her father's going through at the same time, and definitely some craziness that ensues with her in her classroom, which is very interesting. Teaches you, if you're a teacher, never bring an axe to school, and you'll find out why. But decent movie. I really enjoyed this one. I thought, again, Jessica Alba was great in it, looks great in it too, but just a really good, well-told story that again, is about mental illness, but not to the point where it's being driven into being driven into you. It's not like mental illness. It's kind of just sort of in the background of the story, and it's this great story that is being told, but kind of also bringing that up at the same time. So I loved it. Again, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Definitely want to check out. You know what I'm going to say? One of Jessica Alba's probably one of her best movies. I thought she just did a fantastic job in this. I want to see more roles like this where she plays a much more serious character. So I thought it was great. Definitely check it out. I loved it. Then one that I've actually passed on before, and I don't know why. I really wish I would have grabbed this sooner. And that is Everything Must Go. Again, some great acting here. Will Ferrell does a fantastic job in this, not playing a comedic role. I love when people who, you know, are kind of typecast go away from the norm and do something fantastic, like Everything Must Go. He is this character who has a drinking problem. He's doing like AA, and he's a sponsor, and he's definitely got this issue. He's doing pretty good. He's sober for a little while. Goes away to I think they're like closing a deal somewhere, and they close the deal, and they celebrate, him and his partner celebrate by having some champagne. He thinks, oh, I can just have one glass, and ends up drinking the glass, and drinking a lot more, and getting himself completely drunk. Just basically falls off the wagon, gets himself completely drunk, and ends up waking up with, there's a girl there, and she's like pressing charges and saying like they had sex and stuff like that. I won't get into what ends up actually happening there, but it's kind of the last straw for his wife, and his wife's like, you know, okay, you lost your job, you're drinking again, you bang somebody else, bye. And he leaves, and she puts all this stuff out in the lawn, and the whole movie takes place with him out on the front of his lawn with all his stuff out there, and he's like, I'm just gonna live here. I'm just gonna live on the front of the lawn, and hopefully my wife will come back to me and whatnot. And then he realizes, he has to get rid of everything, because if he doesn't, he has X amount of days until he can get like arrested for having all that stuff out there. So he ends up selling it all off, and just basically him coming to terms with everything that happened, and he ends up getting some help from this woman who moves in next door, which is really interesting. She's pregnant, and he kind of befriends her, and she sort of gives him some help. And crazy story with his friend, how his friend kind of like turns on him. His friend and his sponsor like turns on him. Kind of sucks, but great, well-told story. Sharply funny, I guess. Had some funny elements to it, but for the most part, it's a pretty serious movie, and very well done. Will Ferrell is fantastic in this. I thought he does great when he does a straight role. What was that other movie he did with what's her name? I can't think of her name now. Maggie Gyllenhaal. What was that movie he did with her? I forget. But he plays a straight role in that too. I liked that movie. You know, I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. It'll come to me as soon as I'm done this video. Every time I see it, every time I'm like, oh, what's that I'm trying to think of? And you guys leave like 50 comments telling me. I assure you, it came to me as soon as I got done with this video. But I thought that was a great movie as well. So I want to see Will Ferrell do some more straight roles. He's great. He's actually a really good actor who I want to see do more straight roles. So fantastic movie. Check this one out. I really wish I wouldn't have passed on this for so long. I'm glad I finally picked it up and checked it out. Then one my son and I watched together, and we watched Adventures of Elmo and Grouchland. I can't wait to see Mr. Jr. is a little bit older, and he can be sitting right here next to me reviewing movies. That's going to be awesome. So we watched this together, and we both enjoyed it. He enjoyed it because it's Elmo, and he's a huge, huge fan of Elmo. He can finally say Elmo. He used to say Melmo, but he's finally got his L's down, so he can say Elmo now. But it was actually pretty good for what it was. I was surprised. Well, I should say I was surprised. I kind of went into it thinking this could either be like really bad, or it could be fun, like some of the Muppet movies and Jim Henson stuff I grew up with. And it really was. This is actually the only second Jim Henson like Studios Sesame Street movie. The first one was Follow That Bird, which I grew up with, I love, and it kind of has that sort of feel. It has great music, it has a great story, it has great characters, great puppetry. It's actually pretty good. If you're a fan of Jim Henson, you're a fan of Sesame Street, you're a fan of Muppets, you might actually want to give this one a go. Now, of course, it's for kids, but so stuff like Follow That Bird and, Sesame Street, things that people my age are like, oh, Follow That Bird's great because, you grew up with it. It's nostalgic. If you're only liking it because it's nostalgic, I mean, that's one thing. But if you're like me and you like it because, A, it's nostalgic for you, but also because it's a well-done movie, then you're probably going to like The Adventures of Elmo and Grouchland. It's a great story all about Elmo trying to get his blanket back, and ends up going to Grouchland. There's a bad guy who steals it from him, and he's got to get it back. And very, very fun. I loved it. It was great watching it with Simsicus Jr. I'm sure we'll watch it together again sometime. And as a fan of Muppets, as a fan of Jim Henson Productions, I actually really like this one. Definitely one to check out if that's your thing. Oh boy. All right, then a movie that watched on Netflix, and that was Pee-wee's Big Holiday. Some of you guys again are asking about Netflix because I mentioned that I watched all Full House. I do not have a Netflix account. I have no plans on getting a Netflix account. I was simply using my father-in-law's. He has a Netflix account. He lets me log into his if I want. I don't usually use it very often, but I really wanted to watch the Fuller House, sorry. And everybody was talking about Pee-wee's Big Holiday, and I'm a big Pee-wee fan, so I was like, I gotta check it out. I wasn't a fan. I really didn't like it. I mean, a lot of people were saying good things about it. I did see some people saying bad things about it too. So it's not like I was like, everybody was saying great things. There were some people who didn't like it either. But I did see a lot of people like praising it on like Instagram and Facebook and stuff. I thought it was just very mediocre. It kind of felt like a poor man's Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Big Adventure's great. It's got, you know, it's a kind of a dark comedy, obviously with being Tim Burton, but it's a dark comedy. It's this great road trip story. You know, Pee-wee trying to find his bike, having to go to the basement of the Alamo and stuff like that. It's a great movie. It kind of felt like they were trying to do the same thing, but just a cheap version of it. That's another thing. Netflix. Is that the way Netflix is? I've only seen Fuller House. I've only seen Pee-wee's Big Holiday. And they all seem kind of like low budget and cheap. You know, Full House, or sorry, I can't say Full House. Fuller House was, you know, it's all on sets, which is okay because that's how the sitcom was. It's what bothers me is little things, like for instance, when I was saying when I reviewed it, I mentioned that they kind of like redid the intro, but with the characters, it was like side by side, it was like a split screen. There was like the original intro, and then all the characters grown up now, basically mimicking and doing the same thing. But instead of them actually like going to a real park and having, you know, real trees and everything behind them, they're on a set, and it looks really bad because split screen of, you know, the original opening with them, you know, in a park with a real park, and then the other split screen was them on like a stage with fake trees and a fake sky behind them, and it looked bad. And Pee-wee's Big Holiday was kind of the same thing in the sense that it just felt very low budget. I mean, yeah, it was all shot on location, but it just felt like just very low budget. Like I didn't see any like really big scenes or any really big grandness to it. And you know, it had some funny moments, but I didn't even think it was all that funny. I just thought the story was somewhat mediocre, really random too. I mean, I get Pee-wee's Big Adventure where his bike's stolen. Now he's got to go find his bike. It's simple, but it works. This one, he befriends, I can't even think of his freaking name. The guy from Magic Mike. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm not some like big fan of his or anything like that. I mean, he's a cool guy, I'm sure. He's in a Pee-wee movie, he must be. But he like randomly befriends him because like he comes to like a diner that he's working in, and they like they have a lot in common, and they become friends. He invites him to his birthday party, and now Pee-wee's got to go to New York to go to this party. He's like never been out of town before. I will give the movie credit for this. It doesn't stick to it's its own movie. That's the way the Pee-wee movies are. They're always their own movie. It's not like Big Top Pee-wee had like anything to do with Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and vice versa with this one, nothing to do with each other. With the exception of his fear of snakes, they left that in. His fear of snakes is still there. So, whatever. But besides that, they had nothing to do with each other. So he's in this town. He's never left the town, supposedly. He's never gone past the train tracks. So he's only lived in this town, hasn't experienced life. So he figures, I'm going to go out and experience life. And he gets into a whole bunch of mishaps. Again, just like in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, that's what he does. He's going out, and it's just one mishap after another. Just these crazy adventures after another until he gets to where he's looking to go. And again, I just thought it was very mediocre. It wasn't very funny. The story was just very bland. It just felt like a poor man's Pee-wee's Big Adventure. That's really the best way to say it. So that sounds like fun to you. Check it out. But if you're like me and you're like, I'd rather just watch Big Adventure, then do that. I mean, if you're a big Pee-wee fan, I guess it's worth checking out. But if you're just like an average Pee-wee fan, it's not really something you need to see. I was pretty let down. I went into it not expecting much, luckily. I didn't go into it thinking, this is going to be great. I got to check this movie out. I kind of went into it thinking, all right, we'll see how this goes. And I wasn't a fan. Will I buy it if they release on DVD or Blu-ray? I'll probably grab it just because it's Pee-wee, but I really have no plans on really ever watching it again. So Pee-wee's Big Holiday, not so good in my opinion. It is what it is. All right, then I checked out Then She Found Me. You know, there's something I wanted to see. Yeah, directed by Helen Hunt, and I think this was her directorial debut, if I'm not mistaken. So this was an interesting one as well. Helen Hunt, she gets married, and like right after getting married, like to Matthew Broderick, he basically like splits, and he splits, and then her what do you want to call it? Adopted mother dies, and then Bette Midler, who's her real mom, comes in the picture. Just like whole boatload of crap dumped on her, all at the same time. And just like I felt really bad for this movie because I kind of sort of knew what she kind of felt like what she was going through. Like when my father died, I had to deal with that, and then like right when my father died, my grandmother, who like all of a sudden I had to start taking care of, basically I was her guardian. She had like a stroke, and it was just all this stuff, and I had to sell a house, and it was just all this stuff on top of me at one time, and I kind of fell for her. But she meets Colin Firth and hits off with him, but there's issues where he has kids, and she teaches one of his children, and she's dealing with all this other stuff that's going on, and Matthew Broderick's still kind of in her life. Every time he shows up, they like end up banging, and she ends up being pregnant with his kid, and just is this whole big craziness that goes just everything just keeps spiraling into this like crazy story, and just everything keeps getting dumped on Helen Hunt. But in the end, everything sort of works out for the best. So it's a great story, just really interesting. I will tell you this: if you watch it, just keep watching, because the movie did kind of start out a bit slow. It actually was one of those movies where I was like, I gotta watch an hour and a half of this. Why was it was over an hour and a half? Okay, it's a little over an hour and a half. It's 100 minutes. So I remember going into this thinking, like, as I'm starting to watch it, just thinking, really, like, I can already tell I'm not gonna like this movie. But as it progressed, I liked it more and more and more. As like the story built, it got better. So it starts out a little slow, but then it picks up and actually ends up being a pretty good story. So I would actually check this one out. It was pretty good. Definitely see it. Then one I think we all know we're gonna like, and that is The Big Short. Although some of you left comments saying you didn't like it, you found it boring. I thought they did a pretty interesting job with this movie. It's all about the housing market crash and all the banks and like all the bank buyouts and whatnot that happened, and these few people basically kind of saw that this was going to happen. The housing market apparently is always like steady, and they before it crashed saw that it crashed, and they bet against the housing market, because they bet against it so that when the housing market crashed, they'd make a boatload of money. And the banks were like, yeah, you can do that, sure. You can give us all this money and like pay like all this, like they had to pay like something like an interest or something like every month on this money. They had to pay like so much money. And the banks were just raking their money in, thinking these guys are idiots. They're going to give us like their entire life savings and like millions and millions and millions of dollars, and we're just going to sit here and take it all, and the housing market's not going to crash. It never crashes. We're good to go. Well, sure enough, it does crash, but due to a whole boatload of shadiness through the banks, and this is all a true story, by the way, a whole bunch of just incredible, like, I'm not even going to get into it all, just because it's going to get me pretty mad. I actually got kind of pissed off watching this movie, but due to all the shady backwardsness and just horrible illegal things these banks did, they basically didn't really lose any money. And these guys, some of them made money, some of them got screwed, but some of them made money, but not like what they should have made. They basically kind of got somewhat screwed in the end, and it's because of the banks. The banks didn't want to lose all this money. The banks were like, oh crap, they bet against the housing market, and we're gonna basically go out of business because we got to pay these people all this money. We owe these people like a boatload of money, but through, again, like just some backwards illegal shadiness, they kind of got out of that. And of course there was the buyout, and just absolutely insane the stuff that went down. And again, this is all like a true story, and I love that there are parts in this movie where something happens and they kind of stop and they go, all right, this isn't actually how it happened. Here's how it happens, because, you know, movies tend to get very Hollywood and throw in a bunch of stuff that like isn't actually true. They kind of point out what is and isn't. There's also a lot of technical mumbo jumbo. I like when they stop and they break and they have like a celebrity kind of explain to you what exactly they're talking about. Very interesting movie, very well done in my opinion, and it could very well get you kind of pissed off, because it got me pissed off. I try not to be too political anymore. I used to be very political back in the day. Nowadays, I just kind of see it as, I kind of, I don't know, got a little kind of grumpy in my old age, and kind of went from like, I'm going to try to fix things and vote for this person and do that and work towards this. And I kind of got to the point where I'm just like, let's just forget about it. The sooner we destroy, well, not destroy the earth, but the sooner we cause the human race to die off, probably the better for the earth. So that's kind of what I'm working towards now. And so when you watch all this like horrible greediness go on, it gets you kind of pissed off. But it just makes you kind of wish, you know, for the day the human race is no more. It's just horrible stuff. So watch it. Great movie. Really enjoyed it. And then I checked out The Cobbler, which I had not heard anything about. I went into this one completely blind. I didn't even know it was out until maybe like a couple months ago. I happened to just stumble across it. So it was Adam Sandler. I'm not one of those people who hate Adam Sandler. So many people just jump on the we hate Adam Sandler bandwagon. Not me. I tend to like him. I take his movies as they come. Some movies are good. Some movies are bad. I don't just trash the guy as everybody does nowadays. And I thought he was great in this. It's a more serious role as well, which again, another actor who I like when he does serious roles. I think he's good in serious roles. He can actually pull off serious roles. And in this one, it's kind of this sort of serious role, but with a little bit of kind of a lot of bit of fantasy thrown in. He ends up finding out that he has this kind of like magic, like it's like a big sewing machine used for like sewing shoes. And he realizes if he uses that and he puts those shoes on, he basically like becomes that person, the person who owns the shoes. Crazy story, but it's interesting that he ends up trying to use it, you know, for good and trying to help people out. But the issue with that is in doing so, it just kind of backfires on him and kind of creates this whole big mess. He's trying to do the right thing, but it just doesn't really work out for the best in the end, at least at first. Towards the end, everything kind of gets okay and everything sort of works its way out, but everything just keeps snowballing on top of him, and just it doesn't work out. Even when you think he's like in the clear, he ends up doing something that just kind of like brings him all back in again. But it's great. I'm not gonna spoil. I don't want to spoil the ending for you, so I'm not going to get too much into that, but it's just an interesting story about how this all came to be and what this all means. He doesn't know about all this. He finds out about this accidentally, but what it actually means and how this all relates to his heritage and his family and whatnot. So, great movie. Definitely check it out. I really liked it. It kind of sounds crazy. When I read the synopsis of this, I was like, what is this movie gonna be? Is this a comedy? Like this sounds really far-fetched, but it's done in such a way that it works. So it sounds crazy. It is a little crazy, but it actually works out. Everybody's fantastic in this movie. Check out The Cobbler. I really enjoyed it. All right, and then I checked out Alvin and the Chipmunks: The Road Chip. And it is what it is. As far as the Alvin and Chipmunks movies go, I kind of enjoyed the first one. I thought it was pretty decent. Second one I thought was kind of lame, but I thought David Cross was pretty funny in it, so I liked it. And then by the third one, I was just kind of like, okay, I thought that was it. I'm like, third one, they're gonna make it a trilogy. This has got to be the last one because it wasn't all that good. And then hey, why not a fourth one? Again, just mediocre. Just okay. This one's all about Dave Seville and this girl he's dating, and the Chipmunks and the son of this girl. They all get this crazy idea that Dave is going to propose to her, and they don't want that because the Chipmunks and the kid, they don't get along and they don't want it. But of course, they go on this road trip basically, and in the process, they become friends and realize, you know, that they want to have a family and become a family and blah blah blah. It is what it is. It's not that exciting of a movie. Pretty simple plot. It's the Chipmunks. If you like the Chipmunk movies, see it. If you don't like the Chipmunk movies, don't see it. I don't have much to say about this film because it is what it is. It's a Chipmunk movie. Bella Thorne's in it. Kind of wish she would have been in a little bit more because at least we would have had some eye candy. But anyway, Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Road Trip. It's Alvin the Chipmunks. I'm not going to get into that one too much. It is what it is. If that's your thing, check it out. All right, and then I watched a PBS documentary, Secrets of the Dead Slave Ship Mutiny. Interesting story. It's all about this, not an American slave ship, by the way. It's a slave ship for South Africa actually. Slaves coming from Madagascar. And basically, crazy story. So, it's not exactly like these slaves, like, broke free and caused this uproar and took over this ship, this slave ship and whatnot. Not so much. It's basically the people who ran this slave ship were complete morons and basically, like, handed the ship over to the slaves. So you have all these slaves in the boats. It's actually overcrowded because of some shadiness. Basically, they work for the East India Trading Company, and they're supposed to have 200 slaves on the ship. Well, the thing is, if you have 200 slaves on the ship, you're just going to make, you know, whatever money, whatever commission or whatever it is you get for these slaves. But if you just pack even more into the ship, you make your commission or whatever on these 200, and then all the other slaves you have on the ship, you can sell off privately for, you know, a profit. So they overcrowd the ship, too many slaves on board. The problem with that is the more slaves you have, the more crowded it is, and the more disease can start running rampant. So disease starts running rampant. They need to do something. So they decide to let some of the slaves free and come up on top on the deck, and they put them to work. So already they've let some slaves out of the shackles. They're completely free to move around now, just doing some slave work, like scrubbing the deck and stuff like that. Okay, so that's already kind of like, whatever. But at least they're being guarded with you with guns, so you know you're already starting a little bit, but not too bad. Then in the infinite wisdom of these I mean, they're already stupid and deserve everything they get for the fact that they're, you know, slave traders, so they get what's coming to them. But, you know, so they're already not right to begin with. But just to show you how stupid they are, they take weapons. They have spears, and these, apparently, they're like the weapons of these slaves. They're apparently the tribes from Madagascar, apparently like war tribes. So these people, like, they're these spears that are like their weapons. The slaves know how to use it. They're like trained with these weapons. It's what they fight with. They give them the spears and say, clean these. They hand them the weapons. Well, how do you think that turns out? Not so good. The slaves turn. They start stabbing people. They get some guns. They start shooting people. They take over the ship. So, pretty nuts. It boggles my mind that they would, like, you know, hi slave, hi person we captured and slave and are going to sell you off to a horrible life. Here's a weapon. Like, what? Anyways, but so that's how the mutiny happens. Unfortunately, in the end, doesn't work out in their favor. You think it's going to be great, but they want to get sailed back to Madagascar, but they don't know how to sell a ship, so they have to. So some of the crew who's still alive, they have to get them to sell the ship, and they say sell us back to Madagascar. But the crew, obviously, they don't turn a boat around and go back to Madagascar. They keep sailing towards South Africa, and once they get there, the slaves are basically screwed. So it kind of sucks for them, but interesting story nevertheless. So very cool. Kind of sucks in the end that things didn't quite work out, because it's great watching these, the fact that these slaves, had this uprising, even though they were basically physically handed the uprising. Still, the fact that they got to do that was pretty cool, and the fact that the captain and the first mate or whatever the person under the captain is, basically got what was coming to them. So that was good, and the actual captain who lived got screwed. So interesting story. It sucks it didn't work out in the end, but still great watch. I recommend it if you want to see a good documentary. Check it out. And then finally, I watched Ice Age: The Great Egg-Scapade. I actually got this from Fox. They actually sent me the digital copy for it. It's not yet been released to DVD or Blu-ray. I'm going to assume at this point, since Easter's in a couple days, I'm guessing it probably won't get released to DVD or Blu-ray until next Easter. Doesn't make much sense to release it now. If they released it, they should release it this Tuesday. They didn't do that. If they release it next Tuesday, that would make there's not even any listings for it yet. So my guess, next year you'll be seeing this on DVD and Blu-ray. But for now, no. So I've got a digital copy of it, watched it, and it's okay. It's a 25-minute made-for-TV special featuring the Ice Age characters. It's interesting. If you like Ice Age, you're going to enjoy it. Basically, the story is kind of how the Easter Bunny came to be. and how April Fools came to be as well. So it's basically all about spring and spring within the herd, and they, of course, tons of puns, and they're watching the game, but it's like a hawk and some other animal like fighting and stuff like that, and there's all these puns to the spring and stuff like that they're using and whatnot, and again it all ends up being they end up having to watch these eggs, and the eggs get stolen by this evil pirate bunny whose shit was destroyed in, what was it, the Meltdown or whatever, one of the 5,000 Ice Age movies are, and so his ship was destroyed, and he wants to get his revenge on the gang, so he steals these eggs. Now they gotta go find these eggs, but of course the bunny painted all these eggs to hide them, and they had such a fun time finding all these hidden colored eggs that they decided to appoint the brother of the pirate bunny as the Easter bunny. Now this is what he's gonna do every year, and of course you're like, oh, that'll never catch on. Ha ha ha. It's okay. It's enjoyable. If you like Ice Age, it's worth checking out. When it is released to DVD or Blu-ray, I'm gonna say definitely stick to a $5 limit. I mean, that's always my limit, but even for you guys who might want to spend a little bit more, stick to a $5 limit. It's only 25 minutes long. It's not a very long special. The digital copy was had a whole bunch of bonus features on it though, which is kind of neat, but in of itself, the special is only 25 minutes long. So it's worth checking out. Again, if you're an Ice Age fan, it's really cool that it's Easter too, because there aren't a ton of Easter specials. I mean, there definitely are some. I have, an okay amount with my collection, but, compared to Halloween and Christmas and stuff like that, there's not a ton of them. So adding another Easter special onto the list, that's cool. I like it. So it was all right. I would check it out. Again, if you're an Ice Age fan, it's worth seeing. So, all right, guys, there you go. That was it. That's everything that I've recently checked out. So, like I always say, thank you guys so much for checking this video out. Be sure to hit that like button down below. If you are not already subscribed, well, I do a brand new daily sickness video every single day. So if you hit the subscribe button, you will see a new video from me every single day. Also, if you're looking to grab yourself a Cinema Sickness t-shirt, hoodies, tank tops, baby gear, hats, all kinds of cool Cinema Sickness gear, head over to cinemasickness.spreadshirt.com, where you can get some of that. And finally, if you want to keep videos like this coming your way, head over to patreon.com/cinemasickness, where you can become a patron, share your support. Any tiny little bit helps and is very much greatly appreciated. So, all right, guys, that's it. Have a great one, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.